This mind-body interdependence, it's like it was very clear. Like when I start, for example, having worries, or when I feel nervous, or when I start focusing too much on some restless thoughts, my body also feels it. It is very common, and this is a very common experience, that if I have a something important coming up, for example, so I start thinking about this important thing that's coming up, my belly may also feel it. I may start feeling some restlessness in my belly as well, maybe some stomach ache. If I focus too much on negative thoughts and I pay too much attention to the negative thoughts, I may start feeling dizzy or maybe even have a headache. These are some signs that there is actually a connection or interdependence on whatever happens in our minds with our bodies. Well, the same happens the other way around. And this is the way that we are going to kind of explore a little bit under the five principles, five precepts, actually, Buddhist precepts that you may be familiar with, but this is a different approach to them. And how can we use our body and our actions to actually sustain a healthy and prosperous state of mind. If every time that my mind starts to feel restless, my body also feels it. Have you ever noticed that there are certain things that we do with our bodies that also have an impact in our minds? That's pretty much it. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to share a little bit about. So you may be familiar with these five precepts in Buddhism. There are five lay precepts that lay people follow. This is not for monks. This is for lay people like you, like me. So the first one is about not killing. And the principle says, like, I undertake the training precept to refrain from taking life. That's the ancient precept. It's the art of not harming oneself when we apply this to our mind body connection. So why we don't use our body to take in life or to even hurt ourselves? Because it's not only about hurting others, it's also about stopping the harm that we inflict on ourselves when we have thoughts of self-criticism, for example, when we demand too much from ourselves. That's also a way to it's a form of self-violence, actually, under this principle. um, we are kind of attacking our own organism when we are very critical of ourselves, when we want to accomplish everything in no time, um, when we don't listen to our body, or when we go beyond our own capacity. So when we honor this precept of not taking life, and we really honor it for ourselves, that means that we start listening to our body when we need rest, for example, when we need maybe 1 more hour to sleep, when we require a pause. We don't overextend our body. For example, I like training. I really like sports. And when you really like something, like sports, for example, you are under the risk of really overextending yourself and not doing harm to yourself, actually. So keeping the balance by listening to your body, it allows you to cultivate a more wholesome mental state. When I don't inflict violence onto others, I don't also inflict violence onto myself. That would be the first precept, to cultivate a wholesome state of mind. Second one, if I go too fast or you have any question, just let me know, okay? Just drop it in the chat. I will read the questions or comments at the end of the session, yeah, at the end of this topic. The second precept is like, I undertake the training precept to refrain from taking what is not given to me. This is basically not stealing. Yeah. So the first one is like not killing. The second is not stealing, or not taking what is not given. This comes from, this is also again, this is again a bodily action. When I go and take something that hasn't been given to me, that's a bodily action. But it also comes from the mind. So it's all connected. And how can we take this precept in order to support our own minds, our wholesome states of mind? It's about not taking what doesn't belong to us, but in this context, it's about not wasting our vital energy. If we take more commitments than we can handle, are we giving our energy, for example, to commitments that we cannot handle? Or maybe that hasn't been given to us because I'm taking more responsibility actually that has been given to me. That's also a way of inflicting, like, of not really fulfilling this precept. Am I giving my energy to unnecessary worries? Maybe worries are a natural aspect of the mind. It's a natural, yeah, it happens. But if I give them too much energy, what's happening to my mind? I'm certainly not stimulating or not cultivating a wholesome state of the mind. I'm not supporting myself in the quest for maintaining a clear mind, a mindful living as well. So the second one is not only about not only not stealing, but also about what to which things I am given my energy to, and from what things I am taking energy from. Am I watching too much social media? That's also a form of stealing energy. I'm taking energy from others, or I'm just are socializing so much that I'm just taking energy from others because that's the way of I'm feeding my needs of attention or whatever. That's also a form of violating, let's say, this precept. So these are questions that we can ask ourselves, because in that way our bodily actions are supporting, I mean, we can go better in this path of supporting our wholesome mental states through our body. The third one, the third precept, is I undertake the training precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. This is sexual misconduct. Is respect in all relationships. This precept also expands its meaning towards respect for all types of relationships, including the ones that we have with our own body. When we disconnect from our bodily signals, we may fall into harmful patterns. For example, we may eat without hunger, we work to exhaustion, or we ignore the limits that our body sets for us in sports, for example. An appropriate conduct begins by honoring the messages from our organism and treating it with the dignity it deserves. So it's a relationship with other beings, yes, but it's also the relationship that I have with my own body. When my body doesn't honor the relationships, the sexual relationship that it had, that it's already involved with, it's very easy to fall into other harmful patterns, like overeating, like ignoring limits, etc. There is a connection there as well between sexual misconduct and abusing our bodies in other ways. When we start abusing our bodies through sexual misconduct, other forms of abuse also occur. Pay attention. This is about paying attention, okay? I'm not trying to give you like truths that you are not able, like you haven't grasped for yourselves at this point. If there is something that makes sense, keep it. If it doesn't, leave it there. It may make sense maybe in the future, or just take it like as an information that might be useful or not. Yeah. Fourth precept, I undertake the training precept to refrain from false speech. It's about telling lies. Is honesty. It's about honesty in our relationships. Of course, in our relationships, but also with ourselves. These four precepts invite us to truthfulness. This includes being honestly, being honest with what the body and what our mind is communicating to us. We usually feel and sense when something is a little bit off. Let's pay attention to that. So when we refrain from false speech or telling lies, we are relaxing our body and also our minds. It's like we are, again, supporting ourselves in cultivating wholesome mental states. When we tell lies, our body tells as well. I mean, I think you know that. That's even in the movies, like this lie detector stuff. Yeah, because the body speaks as well. So when we refrain from that, we are not creating this unnecessary stress into our bodies, and our body can maintain a better state as well. And when our body is okay, when we feel healthy, our mind is automatically okay, feeling better as well. That's pretty much about false speech. And the fifth precept is I undertake the training precept to refrain from intoxicants. The clarity here is the foundation of well-being. This precept traditionally speaks of intoxicants like drugs, alcohol, but today it expands actually to everything that clouds our body-mind awareness. Again, everything that clouds our connection, our awareness of the connection between our body and our mind is considered an intoxicant. For example, an intoxicant is not only, well, it's not only that what we consume. Okay, we will go to a little bit. I will go a little bit subtle here. For example, chronic stress is also a very modern intoxicant. Why? Because it clouds our judgment, because distorts our perception, and disconnect us from the real needs of our organism, of our body. When we are under stress, we really, our body doesn't matter at all. So from the food that we choose to the content that we consume, for example, in social media, on internet, everything can become a substance that take us away from essential clarity. So the base here, when it comes to refraining from intoxicants, is cultivating clarity and awareness of this body-mind connection or interdependence. Okay, so and as a wrap up, these five commitments are not really restrictions, but they are like getaways to a life in harmony with our essential nature. A little bit for Buddhism, this essential nature. These precepts offer us like a very practical framework to remember that every choice that we make, every thought, every action that we make has an immediate impact and echo in our holistic well-being. So, for example, the next time that you feel that knot in your stomach or tension in your shoulders or persistent fatigue, maybe ask yourself like, which precept do I need to honor now? That could be like a question. Caring for our bodily actions, it's a very deep practice of wisdom. And caring for our mind, it's also not a luxury or something that with what we do with meditation. It's a very genuine expression of compassion towards ourselves and towards others. So yes, in this connectedness between the body and mind, we can really find a path to a more wholesome and conscious life if we really pay attention to. So thank you very much. I don't want to take up much of your time. Thank you. Does anyone has a question, a comment? Please feel free. Thank you, Bundega. So nice to see some familiar faces here. Thank you, Beta. Thank you, Simon. Any question? Uh, okay, thank you, Paola. Nice to hear that. Yeah. I didn't want to over, I mean, I didn't want to generalize this mind body connection because uh, thank you, Andreas. Because sometimes it happens like there's like a kind of a more medical kind of a medical field, and I'm not offering any medical advice here. This is not has nothing to do with that type of health, but actually it's all about this mind body interconnectedness. It's all about how we can support our body and our mind to stay in a wholesome state. And this Buddhism is very clear on that. Like they know this from more than 2,500 years. We, I'm just repeating the knowledge that has been taught for more than 2,500 years. So yeah, so I'm very happy. Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you, Nina. Never, it's an act of kindness, clarity, respect of myself. Yes, it is. It is, Nina. Oh, yeah. The five precepts might be a very common teaching in Buddhism, especially for lay people like me, for example. Yeah, I've been following these five precepts for many years because they really support meditation. But when you go deeper on them and when you refine the knowledge, I mean, when you really refine a little bit the knowledge of these five precepts, they're really wonderful. They're not basic or simple at all. And I wanted to share with you a little bit this depth of these five precepts that they might be very well known, but not always addressed with this depth. Yeah, again.